Welcome back to GB310 Business Processes and Systems presented by Bentley University. In this module, we'll cover supply chain management. To do so, we'll use the textbook Business-Driven Technology by Baltzan and Phillips, and we'll be covering Chapter 3, Strategic Initiatives for Implementing Competitive Advantages, along with some key additions. By the end of this material, we'll leave you with some questions tying this material back to the Apple case which we've used throughout these modules. Let's begin. The learning outcomes for this module are to give you the ability to list and describe the 4 basic components of supply chain management, to be able to explain customer relationship management systems or CRMs and how they can help organizations understand their customers, to summarize the importance of enterprise resource planning systems, and be able to identify how an organization can use business process reengineering to improve its business. Let's start with some strategic initiatives that an organization can undertake. They include a supply chain management, customer relationship management, business process reengineering, and enterprise resource planning, and we'll dive into each of these individually. Supply chain management. This involves the management of information flows between and among the stages in supply chain to maximize total supply chain effectiveness and profitability. So what does this mean? This basically means that the supply chain for an organization is concerned with their products that they're putting to market from the origination point through the final sale. And so historically, organizations wouldn't look beyond their own 4 walls for managing their product. But the idea behind a supply chain management is that the firm is extending its reach further and further back toward the raw materials. And so they become more involved in the delivery of materials along the whole supply chain. There are 4 basic components of this. They include the supply chain strategy, which is the organization's strategy for managing the resources to meet the customer demand. So this would be not only having the products on hand, but understanding when the customers are going to want those products and have replacements in the pipeline to be able to meet future demand. The supply chain partner, which are the partners throughout the supply chain that deliver the finished products, raw materials, and services. So these are all the companies that are involved with moving a product from a raw material through the chain to the point where it's delivered to the customer. The supply chain operation, which is the schedule for production activities. And the supply chain logistics, which is the product delivery process or how an organization moves the product throughout the supply chain. Let's take a look at a specific example, or the supply chain management relationship between Walmart and Procter & Gamble. I think we're all familiar with Walmart, and we're actually all familiar with Procter & Gamble, even though we might not know that parent company name. They make such products as Ivory soap, Crest toothpaste, Vicks cough medicine, and Iams pet food. Now, as you can imagine, Procter & Gamble supplies Walmart with a significant amount of product for Walmart to sell to the end consumer. And so here we could see that supply chain management relationship. So Procter & Gamble would receive paper and packaging supplies from one of their producers, along with some other materials that they would need to build their product. They would then build their product, and they move that to a Walmart warehouse or a distributor. The warehouse or distributor would move that to the store where eventually the customer would buy that. Now, the double-headed arrows here indicate that information is flowing between all of these connections within the supply chain. So the Walmart store is transferring information back to the warehouse or distributor, indicating what it needs, what is being sold. And then that warehouse or distributor goes back to Procter & Gamble and explains, what is selling and what is going to be needed in the future versus what might not be selling, and they may be reducing their amount of order in the future. Now, Walmart and Procter & Gamble didn't always have such a tight relationship. Back in 1988, before they started this CRM initiative, their relationship was adversarial. Walmart didn't like doing business with Procter & Gamble and complained that they were too complicated and they were inflexible. Procter & Gamble, on the other hand, had their sales force focused on day sales, which was pressuring their sales employees to go out and make new sales every day with a short-term outlook. So Walmart turned to P&G and they challenged them to think about Walmart stores as an extension of Procter & Gamble. And what would that mean to Procter & Gamble if they were to adopt this approach to working with Walmart? So the results were that in 1988, Walmart sold $375 million worth of Procter & Gamble products. By the end of 2012, this had grown to over $12 billion in sales. So both have benefited from this relationship. But what we've seen is Walmart has now significant power over Procter & Gamble. Since Walmart represents 14% of total Procter & Gamble sales, or just under 1/6 of their total sales, Walmart can use that as leverage to limit the types of products that they want to sell. So, for example, Walmart has restricted certain magazines from being sold through their stores, and they can also have enormous buyer power since they buy such a significant amount of product. On the other hand, Procter & Gamble has seen their revenue increase dramatically because of this relationship. So I'm just going to leave you with the question of who do you think benefits most from this relationship? Effective and efficient sales supply chain management systems, they can enable an organization to decrease the power of its buyers, as well as increase its own supplier power, increase the switching costs to reduce the threat of substitute products or service, create entry barriers, thereby reducing the threat of new entrants, and increase efficiencies while seeking a competitive advantage through cost leadership. So you should be familiar with all of these because we've covered them in Porter's model. So let's see how it looks in Porter's 5 forces. So I've just added some arrows indicating where power has changed as a result of an integrated supply chain management system. So we're saying that our supplier now has more power. Meaning in the Procter & Gamble case, because of the tight link between the supply chain management and Walmart and such an enormous amount of product being supplied by Procter & Gamble has increased power over Walmart to a degree. However, the threat of substitute products or services decrease because as the relationship becomes tight, then you're less reliant on finding other alternatives for that product since you're cultivating a relationship with an existing supplier already. The buyer power, however, goes down. So the bargaining power of channels and the bargaining power of end users all decrease, primarily as in the Procter & Gamble and the Walmart case, as both are able to decrease their costs, they're able to decrease their cost for the end consumer. But the consumer then has fewer competitive products that they could go to, so they have less buying power. And the threat of new entrants is decreased as parties enjoy the benefits of the supply chain management system. Another strategic initiative that an organization can take is called Customer Relationship Management, or a CRM. This involves managing all aspects of a customer's relationship within an organization to increase customer loyalty and retention and an organization's profitability. So many organizations have obtained great success through the implementation of CRM systems. And basically what this means is that an organization is going to put a system in place that has a customer focus. And so as you're looking up information in the system, it is all oriented toward the customer. So it's also not just a technology, but it's a strategy and a process and a business goal that an organization must embrace. So you have to treat your customer as a strategic part of your business and build your business around the customer. So if the customer is the focus in the customer relationship management strategy, then you start to make business decisions based on things that will help increase that relationship between you and your customer. An effective customer relationship management can enable an organization to identify their types of customers so they can get clear indication as to customers that may purchase similar products, and they can start learning buying behaviors because of the existing customers, and that will allow them to increase their marketing channels. They can design individual customer marketing campaigns, as I just mentioned. So if we're starting to see a trend toward certain types of our customer demographics are moving toward a specific product, then we can focus our marketing. This also lets us treat each customer as an individual. And so I'm not just mass marketing to my entire customer base, but I'm trying to identify really marketing opportunities that are going to be beneficial for both the firm and the individual. So the individual is getting marketing literature and marketing strategy that's focused on things that they actually might want. And it will help us understand customer buying behaviors, which is what we just covered. So the customer relationship management overview, an organization would typically have many systems within the organization, and these would include the accounting system, the sales system, the inventory system, as well as a customer service system, which would be used for assisting with customer inquiries. And a CRM really takes components of each of these disparate systems and condenses them into a single system with the customer relationship focus. So historically, that's been the case. Now, recently, you could think of all of this as within the four walls of the organization, but more and more organizations now are realizing that they can get external data or big data from external sources and help to augment their own customer relationship management with this external data that they can purchase or partner to get this type of information. So if you are a Facebook user, for example, and you start to follow certain trends within the Facebook community, if I can partner as an organization with Facebook to get that information, then I can really refine my customer relationship management system to include a lot more demographic information that I might not otherwise have just in my own proprietary systems. A third strategic initiative an organization can undertake is business process reengineering, and we covered this quite a bit in an earlier module. So a business process is just a standardized set of activities that accomplish a specific task. So this is, what does an organization do? What are the steps to accomplish any specific task within an organization? Now, the art of business process reengineering is to take a look at these steps that we're doing throughout the organization and redesign our workflow within and between the enterprises. So why would we have to do this? Oftentimes, business processes are put in place early on just to make it work. And so they're not necessarily put in place understanding the current scope and scale that an organization is facing, but it's simply to be reacting to a change in the marketplace. So for example, when the World Wide Web first started coming out, companies really weren't sure whether it was going to be a channel for them or not. And so they may have taken tentative steps to get out on the World Wide Web and done some things in a tentative manner just to get the job done. So they just got their website up, they just got maybe a point of sale system enacted on the website, things like that, because they really didn't know where the market was going. And then as the market blossomed and became a much larger part of their business, they may realize that the processes they put in place initially are not scalable. So oftentimes a business process reengineering project would be undertaken to rework that so it can work at the scale that you need it to work today. In Reengineering the Corporation by Michael Hamer and James Champy, they recommend seven principles for business process reengineering. They stress to organize around outcomes, not the tasks. So you want to be concerned with what is the output of a process, not the tasks that you're doing to achieve that outcome. And the key here is that the point is that you want to re-engineer it. So you don't want to just make the existing steps better. You want to challenge the notion that the existing steps are even the way to go in the first place. And so you may eliminate tasks or replace them dramatically with different types of tasks to achieve a better outcome. Their second principle is that you identify all the organization's processes and you prioritize them. You can't undertake a re-engineering project for every process that an organization is under. It would be disruptive to the organization. You wouldn't have the staff to do it. And you can't run a business successfully on a day-to-day basis if you've got all of your business processes in the middle of being redone. So you want to target those that require immediate attention and deal with those first. Thirdly, you want to integrate your information processing work into the real work that produces the information. So this means that you want to take the information that you're getting out of the system and making sure that this is actually feeding back into the design of future systems. Fourthly, you'd like to treat geographically dispersed resources as though they were centralized. So do not think of a remote office as external to the company, for example, but think of them as just another component within a centralized mechanism, because our technologies now are giving us the capability to treat remote firms, remote offices, and remote parts of our business as though they were just next door. So you want to be able to treat them as if they were centralized. Fifth, you want to link parallel activities in the workflow instead of just integrating their results, meaning that you want activities that are working toward a singular goal to be working in parallel. Sixth, you'd like to put the decision point where the work is performed and build controls into the process. So this is where you're pushing kind of the responsibility down to the worker. And so while you're trying to perhaps centralize power, you want to actually almost decentralize the activity itself. And you want to move that decision point down to who's doing the work, because oftentimes it's the person who's doing the work that understands the best way to do that work. If they're doing that activity on a day-to-day basis, they're the ones that best know how it can be improved. And then you want to capture information in once and only at the source. So you don't want redundant information coming in, and you don't want to rely on information that's coming through multiple steps in the process, or else it can get diluted or it can get mixed up along the way. So you really want to rely on the source of the information to get that information. To find opportunities using business process reengineering, you want to look at not necessarily just how to improve things, as we said, how to improve existing tasks. You want to challenge the notion that every task that you're doing today even needs to be done. So for example, a company could improve the way it goes by road, travels on the road by moving from foot to horse and then horse to car. But BPR would look at challenging that notion that you actually even need the road in the first place. And so maybe the point of the activity is to get from point A to point B, and we've been confusing or focused on this road network to get us from point A to point B, when there may have been another activity that would let us bypass the road entirely, as in an airline in this example. Now, Progressive Insurance has tried to do this disruptive business process reengineering with their claims process. So if you're in a car accident, oftentimes what would normally happen in a traditional setting is that you would have to contact your insurance agent. The agent would take that information and would transfer that information to the insurance company itself. The company would have to send out an adjuster to your car. The adjuster would arrive at the car, would determine what's wrong with the car, have to get it fixed, have to negotiate with the repair shop. And in all this time, you're sitting here just wanting to get your car back on the road. So that historically that time could take anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks. What Progressive Insurance is doing is they've tried to disrupt that process by saying, when you're in an accident, call us immediately, and we're actually going to send a claims representative out to the site of the accident. He or she will immediately assess the damage to the vehicle and often will actually write a check right there on the spot to cover the damages. So then you can take care of getting it repaired and you're no longer dealing with the insurance agent. Now, what this does mean from a BPR point of view is now that claims representative who goes to the scene of the accident has to have enough information along with him to be able to accurately assess your vehicle and determine what the cost should be. He or she can no longer rely on a legacy system that's sitting on his desktop if he's now on the road for his entire shift. So there would be technology changes that would have to occur within the organization to make this possible. So the claims adjuster would have that information at his fingertips at the scene of the accident. An organization using BPR can find opportunities. So they can achieve, along with the magnitudes of change, the potential business benefits. So as you can see, automation will give us toward the lower end on both the benefit and the magnitude of change. And as we move out, we can streamline, which gives us a bit more benefit and a bit more magnitude of change, to business process reengineering, to strategic reengineering, which would give us the most benefit and be the largest type of change. The fourth strategic initiative that an organization could take is Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP. This would be a system that integrates all departments and functions throughout an organization into a single system that employees can use to make decisions with a global view on the business operations. And in this case, the key really is enterprise, for enterprise-wide. So you would have all your resources, and these would include your personnel resources. And so you can understand how you can allocate those across the organization to achieve the benefits that you want to achieve. So for example, here would be information from a sales database. And so we can see its primary key, it appears, is really kind of the order date. And so we can see it's ranked by date. And we can see that certain customers, for example, in that first row, customer AC45 ordered some mozzarella cheese on January 4th. Now, from an accounting database perspective, we're not necessarily concerned with we don't have the same set of questions that we had from the sales perspective. So from an accounting point of view, I'm much more concerned with what was the total sale versus what were my costs for that product that we just sold. Now, a sales database it would not necessarily be concerned with the cost of the product. They just know the target sale price that they want to achieve. So an enterprise resource system would collect all this information and then correlate it to generate the enterprise-wide view. So it would take the corporate data from both employees, orders, customers, sales, inventory, and it would consolidate it into a single system, which would then give senior management a series of reports or views into the system where they can understand what is going on within the organization from a holistic basis.